The night city glimmered beneath the glass walls of the towering skyscraper, lights flickering like the memories Ethan had tried to bury for 6 long years. He was the CEO now, powerful, desired, respected, yet none of it filled the emptiness that clawed at his chest every time he looked at the old photograph hidden in his drawer. The one with her smile, soft, unguarded, real. Amelia. He had loved her once, no, he still did. But pride and ambition had driven him to destroy the very thing that made his world beautiful. He'd chosen money, control, and status over love, and when she walked away, he told himself he didn't care. That was 6 years ago. Until tonight. The grand charity gala was packed with high society's finest. The powerful, the polished, the cunning. Ethan moved through them effortlessly, a flawless mask of charm and dominance. But the moment his gaze caught the woman in the corner of the room, poised, graceful, wearing a deep emerald gown that shimmered under the lights, his breath faltered. It was her. Amelia. For a second, the world around him vanished. Her hair was slightly shorter now, her posture stronger, her eyes deeper, wiser, untouched by the old innocence. She laughed softly at something someone said, and the sound pierced through the noise, straight into his heart. He didn't think. He just moved. Amelia. His voice was barely above a whisper when he reached her. She turned slowly, her smile fading the moment she saw him. Time froze between them. 6 years of silence hanging heavy in the air. Ethan. Her tone was calm, distant. The way she said his name, though. He could still hear the echoes of the woman who once loved him. You look, he hesitated, different. So do you, she replied smoothly, her expression unreadable. Before he could say more, a small voice interrupted. Mommy, can I have the chocolate cake now? Ethan turned toward the voice, and the world tilted. A little boy stood beside her, no more than 5, with tousled dark hair and eyes that mirrored Ethan's perfectly. The same stormy gray. The same half-smile that used to melt Amelia's heart. For a heartbeat, Ethan couldn't breathe. He looked from the boy to her, confusion and realization clashing violently in his chest. Amelia, his voice trembled. Who is he? Her lips curved faintly. My son. The words struck him harder than any blow. My son. Not our. He stared at the boy again, at the tiny replica of himself, and 1,000 questions flooded his mind. His name, he managed. Liam, she said softly, her hand resting protectively on the boy's shoulder. Liam. Ethan's throat tightened. The boy looked up at him with curious eyes. You look like me, he said innocently. Amelia's expression flickered, a flash of pain before she looked away. Ethan's chest constricted. The realization hit. The reason she disappeared, the reason she never called, never came back. He took a hesitant step forward. Amelia, is he? Don't, she cut in sharply, her tone laced with quiet steel. This isn't the place. Her poise was unshakable, but Ethan saw the tremor in her hand as she guided Liam toward the dessert table. He stood frozen, watching the 2 figures walk away. His heart pounding with guilt, regret, and something raw, longing. Later that night, he found himself outside her penthouse, rain pouring down, hair drenched, desperation pushing him to press the doorbell again and again. When she finally opened the door, wrapped in a soft robe, she stared at him with disbelief. What are you doing here? She asked. I needed to see you, he said hoarsely. Please, Amelia. Just talk to me. She sighed, eyes closing briefly. You had 6 years to talk, Ethan. I didn't know, he said, stepping closer. You should have told me. Her voice cracked slightly. Told you. When you were busy signing divorce papers and taking another woman to your parties. He flinched. That was a mistake. Everything after you was a mistake. Her eyes glistened with unshed tears. You can't just show up and expect me to forget what you did. I don't expect you to forget, he whispered, his hand trembling as he reached out. But I can't stand knowing that I missed his first word, his first step. I can't stand that I wasn't there. Her lips parted, and for a moment her guard dropped. The years melted away, revealing the same ache in both their eyes. "Ethan," she whispered, her voice softening. He took another step. The air between them grew heavy, charged with emotions neither could contain. His hand brushed her cheek, warm, familiar. She didn't pull away. "I never stopped loving you," he murmured. Tears rolled down her face as she looked up at him. "You don't get to say that now." But when he leaned in, slowly, hesitantly, she didn't move. His lips hovered near hers, the tension thick, every breath shared. The years apart dissolved in the warmth of that moment, in the soft tremble of her lips, in the silent war between desire and pain. When their lips finally met, it wasn't gentle. It was desperate, full of regret and everything left unsaid. Her hands gripped his shirt as if fighting herself, and when she finally broke the kiss, she whispered, "Don't make me believe you again, Ethan." He cupped her face gently. "Then let me prove it." Outside, the rain thundered, but inside, the silence between them spoke louder than any storm. And for the first time in 6 years, Ethan felt something real again, the spark he thought he'd lost forever. But Amelia's eyes told another story, one that wasn't ready to forgive, not yet. Because love, once broken, doesn't heal overnight. Especially when secrets still linger in the dark. She stood frozen for a long moment, her pulse racing. The heat of his kiss still lingered on her lips, conflicting with the cold storm outside. Amelia turned away, clutching her robe tighter as though to hold herself together. Ethan's gaze followed her every movement, slow, graceful, but heavy with restraint. "Ethan, you should go," she whispered, her voice trembling. He didn't move. His eyes softened. "If I go now, I might never get another chance to say what I should have said years ago." She stopped halfway to the stairs and looked over her shoulder. "And what's that?" "That I ruined everything that mattered to me," he said. I let pride destroy what love tried to protect." Her chest ached. She wanted to scream, to cry, to tell him that no amount of apology could return the sleepless nights, the loneliness, the fear of raising Liam alone. But instead she said quietly, "Some wounds don't heal with words, Ethan." He stepped closer, lowering his voice. "Then let me heal them with time." Her heart stuttered at his tone, the same deep voice that once whispered promises against her skin. She turned away quickly, but his hand brushed her wrist. The touch was electric, pulling her back to the years when his touch meant safety, not pain. "Please," he murmured, his thumb brushing her hand gently. "Just dinner. Tomorrow. For Liam's sake. I just want to know him." Her eyes flicked up to meet his, that same storm-gray gaze that once undid her completely. She wanted to refuse. She should have refused. But the sincerity in his face made something fragile stir within her. "Tomorrow," she said quietly. "At the cafe near the park. Noon." He exhaled shakily, relief softening his features. "Thank you." She nodded and turned away, but before she could take another step, his voice came again, softer, almost breaking. "I missed you every day, Amelia." The words hit her like a wave, but she didn't look back. The next morning dawned bright and deceptively calm. Amelia stood by her window, watching the city awaken. Her heart was restless, her thoughts tangled. She'd spent the night replaying his words, his kiss, his regret. But she couldn't forget the man who had once looked at her with the same eyes and told her she wasn't enough. Liam's laughter from the living room snapped her out of her thoughts. He was watching cartoons, messy hair and cereal in hand. Her little miracle. She smiled softly. "Come on, sweetheart. We have somewhere to go today." At noon, the cafe buzzed with soft chatter and the scent of roasted coffee beans. Ethan was already there, sitting by the window, his tailored suit perfect as ever. But for once, he didn't look like the polished CEO. He looked human, nervous, almost vulnerable. When Amelia and Liam walked in, his breath caught. The sight of his son, bright-eyed, curious, alive, filled him with something he couldn't name. Liam ran toward the table, eyes wide. "You came." Ethan knelt, smiling. "I told you I would." Amelia watched as Liam climbed onto the chair beside him, chattering about cartoons and school and his favorite superhero. Ethan listened intently, laughing, his gaze filled with awe. It hurt to watch, the way they mirrored each other. The same laughter. The same way they tilted their heads. For a moment, she let herself imagine it. What life could have been if things hadn't fallen apart. Sunday breakfasts, bedtime stories, family trips. The warmth she'd been denied. Then Ethan looked up, his eyes meeting hers across the table. "Thank you," he said quietly. "For what?" "For giving me this moment," he murmured. "I don't deserve it." Her throat tightened. "You're right. You don't." But there was no venom in her tone, only exhaustion, the kind that came from too many nights of pretending she was fine. After lunch, Liam ran off to play near the fountain, leaving them in uneasy silence. Ethan leaned forward. "Amelia, please let me be part of his life." She stiffened. "It's not that simple." "I'm not asking for forgiveness," he said. "I'm asking for a chance to make things right." Her hands curled around her cup. "You think you can walk back in after 6 years and fix everything?" "No," he admitted. "But I can try." She looked at him for a long moment, the man she once loved more than her own heartbeat. Time had changed them both, but something undeniable still lived between them. "You don't even know what broke us, Ethan," she said bitterly. He frowned. "You left without explaining." "Because you wouldn't have listened," she interrupted, her voice cracking. "You were too busy proving yourself, too proud to see I was drowning right beside you." He froze. Her eyes glistened. "I begged you to come home, Ethan. I begged you to look at me. Not as your wife, not as your trophy, but as the woman who loved you. You pushed me away every time. Do you have any idea how much that destroyed me?" The silence that followed was suffocating. Ethan's expression crumbled. "I thought I was protecting us. That I was building something for you. Money isn't love," she whispered. "Success isn't comfort. I didn't need a mansion. I needed you." Her words hit him like a blade. For the first time, Ethan had no defense, no excuse. Only guilt. He reached across the table slowly, his hand covering hers. "Let me be the man I should have been. For you. For him." Amelia looked down at their hands. His strong, hers trembling. She didn't pull away. Not yet. Her heart wanted to believe him. Her mind reminded her of the nights she cried alone. But his touch was still her weakness. "Ethan," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "If I let you back in, don't break us again." He leaned closer, his eyes dark with sincerity. "I won't. I swear." She could feel his breath, warm and close. The scent of his cologne brought back memories she thought she'd buried. His lips brushing her neck, his laughter against her skin. Her pulse quickened. Their eyes locked, and the tension between them thickened. When his hand moved up, fingers tracing the side of her jaw, she didn't stop him. "Amelia," he murmured, her name falling from his lips like a plea. Her breath caught. "People are watching," she whispered half-heartedly. "Let them," he said softly. "They can watch me fall for you all over again." Her lips parted, her heartbeat wild. For a moment time folded, and all that existed was him. The man who'd broken her heart. And the same man who somehow still owned it. But deep down, beneath the fragile hope, a shadow lingered. Because Amelia knew. Some storms were not over. They were only waiting to strike again. The afternoon sun poured through the cafe windows, painting their faces in golden light. Amelia could feel the weight of his gaze on her, the warmth of his fingers still lingering against her skin. Her pulse refused to steady. Every instinct screamed for her to pull away, to protect herself. But there was something disarming in his presence, something that reminded her of the nights they used to dream together before everything shattered. Liam's laughter echoed from outside, a reminder of reality. She pulled her hand away, breaking the fragile connection. "Ethan, don't say things you can't mean." His eyes softened, a small smile tugging at his lips. "Amelia, if you only knew how much I meant every word." She swallowed, trying to steady her breathing. People change. We're not who we used to be. He leaned back, studying her as though seeing her for the first time. You're right. I'm not the same man. The old me wouldn't have had the courage to stand here and admit I was wrong. The old me was blind, selfish. And what about now? She asked quietly. Now I see what really matters, he said simply. And it's standing right in front of me. Her chest tightened. You can't just come back and pick up where we left off. I'm not trying to, he murmured. I'm asking for a new beginning. Before she could answer, Liam came running back. His cheeks flushed with excitement. Mommy, can he come with us to the park? Ethan looked at her, waiting, hesitant. For a long moment she said nothing. Then she nodded. The three of them walked together through the nearby park, the cool breeze brushing against the trees. Liam ran ahead, chasing a butterfly, while Ethan and Amelia followed slowly behind. It was strange. How natural it felt. As if time had folded back, and for a fleeting moment, they were a family again. He's incredible, Ethan said, his voice low, full of awe. So bright, so full of life. Amelia smiled faintly, watching her son. He's my world. Our world, he corrected softly. She looked at him sharply, and his expression told her he meant it. It scared her how much she wanted to believe him. Ethan, she began, but before she could finish, he reached for her hand again. His fingers brushed hers, tentative, trembling, like he was asking permission to touch her heart again. You don't have to say anything, he said gently. Just let me walk beside you. That's all I'm asking for. She wanted to pull away, but the sincerity in his voice disarmed her. For the rest of the walk they said nothing. But their silence spoke volumes, the kind filled with history, regret, and something still alive beneath the ashes. When the sun dipped lower, they sat on a bench watching Liam play with other children. The sound of his laughter melted into the evening air. Ethan turned to her. Do you ever think about us? Amelia's lips curved in a sad smile. Every time I close my eyes. He exhaled slowly, eyes fixed on her. I thought I could forget you. Tried. But every success, every deal, every celebration felt empty without you beside me. Her heart ached. Then why did you let me go? He looked down, his jaw tightening. Because I thought love made me weak. I thought power would fill the void. But I was wrong. It only made me hollow. She blinked back tears. You broke me, Ethan. You left me when I needed you most. I know, he whispered. And I'll regret it for the rest of my life. A silence fell between them, heavy and fragile. Amelia could feel the sincerity in his words, but also the fear of reopening a wound that had never fully healed. I don't know if I can ever trust you again, she admitted. He nodded slowly. Then let me earn it. One day at a time. The simplicity of his answer caught her off guard. There was no grand promise, no desperate plea, just quiet determination. The way he looked at her now, not as something to possess but someone to cherish, made her heart flutter in spite of herself. As the last of the sunlight faded, Liam ran back and jumped into her arms. Can he come to dinner, Mommy? She hesitated, her eyes meeting Ethan's. We'll see, sweetheart. Ethan smiled faintly. I'd like that. That night, after putting Liam to bed, Amelia sat by the window, lost in thought. The city shimmered below, and she could still feel Ethan's gaze. His words echoing in her mind. Part of her wanted to shut him out completely, to guard the fragile peace she had built. But another part of her, buried deep, whispered what she didn't want to admit. She still loved him. Her phone buzzed. Message. Ethan, thank you for today. Seeing him. Seeing you, it meant everything. Her fingers hovered over the screen before she typed back. Amelia, don't thank me yet. This doesn't change anything. But even as she sent it, she knew it wasn't true. Something had changed, quietly, inevitably. Over the next few days, Ethan found reasons to see them again. Lunch after Liam's school recital, an impromptu visit with gifts he claimed were for Liam, though Amelia knew better. He was careful, patient, never pushing too far. And slowly, her walls began to crack. One evening, as rain poured down again, she found herself standing at her balcony, the sound of thunder reminding her of the night he first showed up at her door. She thought about how easily he could stir emotions she thought were long dead. The doorbell rang. Her heart skipped. She opened it, and there he was again, soaked to the bone, holding an umbrella and a small box. "I know I should have called," he said with a crooked smile, "but I wanted to bring this." Inside the box was a small silver bracelet, engraved with Liam's name and a tiny star. "For him," Ethan said softly. "A reminder that he's my light." Her throat tightened. "You didn't have to." "I wanted to," he interrupted gently. "And I wanted to see you." Their eyes met, and the air thickened once more. She stepped aside wordlessly, letting him in. They stood in the quiet living room, the air humming with tension. The storm outside mirrored the storm inside her. When he reached up, brushing a strand of hair from her face, she froze. His hand lingered near her cheek, and the years between them vanished. "You still do that," he murmured. "Do what?" "Bite your lip when you're trying not to let me in." Her lips parted, and his gaze dropped to them. "Ethan," she breathed, but it came out as a sigh. He stepped closer, his voice barely above a whisper. "Tell me to leave, and I will." He didn't. Instead, she lifted her eyes to meet his, the fire between them reigniting. Slow, dangerous, unstoppable. And when his lips touched hers again, it wasn't out of desperation this time. It was something deeper, a rediscovery. A promise whispered through the rain that maybe, just maybe, love could be rebuilt from the ruins. Her hand slid up his chest, his heartbeat pounding against her palms. His arms wrapped around her waist, pulling her closer, the kiss deepening with every second. For that moment, the world outside ceased to exist. There were no regrets, no years lost. Only the two of them, lost in the echoes of what once was and what could still be. But beneath the passion, in the shadows of her heart, Amelia knew one thing. Love had returned to test them once again. His lips trailed from her mouth to her jaw, slow and deliberate, as if memorizing every inch he had once taken for granted. Amelia's breath hitched. Her hands trembled against his chest. The rhythm of his heartbeat was wild, mirroring her own. For a fleeting second, she allowed herself to surrender, to the warmth, the scent, the familiar safety that had always existed in his embrace. But then, as his fingers traced the curve of her back, reality came crashing down. She broke the kiss abruptly, stepping back with trembling lips. "Ethan, we can't," she whispered, her voice unsteady. He looked at her, eyes burning with a mix of desire and desperation. "Tell me you don't feel it, Amelia. Tell me this means nothing to you." She looked away, her heart hammering. "It's not about feeling. It's about surviving. I spent years piecing myself together after you broke me." He reached for her hand, but she pulled it back. The pain in his face was almost unbearable. "I know," he said softly. "And I'll spend the rest of my life proving I can be better than the man who hurt you." Her eyes shimmered with unshed tears. "You can't just erase the past, Ethan." "I don't want to erase it," he murmured. "I want to make peace with it, with you." The rain outside softened, the thunder fading into a low hum. The room fell into a silence so thick it felt like the air itself was holding its breath. Amelia turned to the window, trying to steady her heartbeat, but her reflection staring back told her the truth. She was still his in ways she couldn't admit. He stepped closer, his voice low and rough. "Do you ever think about us? About what we could have been?" Her answer was barely a whisper. "Every single day." Something inside him broke then, all the years of pride, distance, and regret collapsing in one breath. He moved forward and wrapped his arms around her from behind. She stiffened at first, then slowly melted against him, the warmth of his body pressing against her back. "Don't run from me this time," he whispered near her ear. Her eyes fluttered shut. The scent of him, clean, sharp, familiar, wrapped around her like a memory she could never escape. She turned in his arms, her face inches from his. Their eyes locked, and time seemed to halt again. He leaned in, his forehead touching hers. "I missed you so much it hurt to breathe." Her lips trembled. "And yet you let me go." "I was a fool," he said, voice breaking. "But I won't lose you again, Amelia. Not when I finally see what I almost destroyed." Her fingers brushed his cheek, tracing the faint lines that hadn't been there before. Time had marked them both, but in that moment, all she could see was the man who had once been her home. Their lips met again, slower this time, deeper, filled with the ache of years apart. The kiss carried everything they had never said. The apologies, the longing, the unspoken love that had never died. When they finally pulled apart, both were breathless. She whispered, "You don't know what you're asking for." He smiled faintly, his thumb brushing her lower lip. "Then show me. Teach me how to love you the right way." Something in his tone disarmed her. It wasn't arrogance or charm. It was vulnerability, the kind that came only from genuine remorse. She wanted to resist, to keep the fragile walls around her heart intact, but he looked at her as though she was his entire world. And maybe, deep down, she still wanted to be. Later that evening, after the storm had faded, they found themselves sitting side by side on the couch. Liam was asleep upstairs, the soft rhythm of rain still tapping against the window. Amelia curled her legs beneath her, staring at the flickering city lights. Ethan broke the silence first. "Do you ever wonder what it would have been like if I hadn't let ambition consume me?" She smiled sadly. "We'd probably still be arguing about who gets to choose the movie." He chuckled quietly. "And I'd still lose." Their laughter blended with the sound of the rain, light and fleeting. For the first time in years, the space between them didn't feel like a battlefield. But just as the atmosphere softened, her phone buzzed on the table. She glanced at the screen, and her expression shifted. Ethan caught it immediately. "Who is it?" She hesitated. "Just someone from work." His jaw tightened slightly. "Someone important." She looked at him sharply. "You don't get to ask me that." He nodded, guilt flashing across his face. "You're right. I'm sorry." The tension returned, quiet but palpable. She sighed, running a hand through her hair. "This is why it can't work, Ethan. We're too different now. You still want control." He shook his head. "No, I just want you. That's all." Her eyes softened, but her voice stayed firm. "Then learn to let go. Love isn't about owning, Ethan. It's about choosing every single day." He studied her for a moment, then nodded slowly. "Then I'll choose you every day, even if you don't choose me back yet." Her lips parted, a flicker of emotion flashing across her face. No one had ever said something like that to her before, not even the man she'd once married. Without thinking, she reached out, brushing his fingers. "You've changed," she murmured. He smiled faintly. "Not enough. But I'm trying." A silence settled again, but this time it felt softer, like a truce. Outside, the storm had cleared completely. The city glowed under the night sky, reflections dancing on the wet streets. Ethan stood and reached for her hand. "Come outside with me." She frowned. "In the rain." He grinned. "It's stopped. Just trust me." Curiosity won. She followed him to the balcony, the cool air brushing her face. The city stretched before them, vast, alive, endless. He turned to her. All of this means nothing without you." Her heart clenched. "Don't say that." "It's true," he said quietly. "Every time I signed a deal, every time I stood in front of a crowd, I imagined you there. You were my reason, Amelia. You still are." She looked at him, tears glistening in her eyes. "You're making it hard to stay angry." He smiled gently. "Maybe it's time to stop fighting what's always been there." The wind picked up, tousling her hair. She laughed softly, shaking her head. "You always knew how to say the right thing." He stepped closer, his hands resting lightly on her waist. "Not always. But I'm learning now. Her breath caught. His nearness, his warmth, the raw sincerity in his eyes. It was overwhelming. Ethan, she whispered, her voice trembling, don't make promises you can't keep. He leaned in until their foreheads touched again. This time, I'll keep every one of them. And as the city lights reflected in their eyes, Amelia felt something stir inside her. Fragile but alive. The part of her that had stopped believing in forever began to hope again, despite herself. She didn't know what tomorrow would bring, but as his arms drew her closer, she knew one thing. For the first time in 6 years, she wasn't afraid to feel. The night wind brushed against their faces, cool and scented faintly of rain and city smoke. Amelia could hear the soft hum of traffic below, distant yet strangely soothing. Ethan's arms tightened around her waist, not possessive, protective, steady. For a moment, she let herself lean into him, her head resting against his chest. His heartbeat thudded beneath her ear, slow and certain, like the rhythm of a memory she hadn't realized she missed. He pressed a soft kiss to her temple, his breath warm against her skin. You don't know how many times I imagined this, he murmured. She closed her eyes. And how many times did you imagine letting me go? His chest rose sharply, and silence fell between them again. He didn't have an answer, not one she wanted to hear. She pulled back slightly, searching his face for the truth. The lines of age and exhaustion carved into his expression only made him look more human, more real. I lost you because I thought power would make me whole, he said quietly. But the truth is, the day you walked out, everything I built stopped meaning anything. Amelia looked away, blinking fast. She didn't want to cry, not again. You chose that world, Ethan. You didn't lose me. You pushed me out. He reached for her hand, brushing his thumb over her knuckles. And I've been trying to find my way back ever since. She shook her head, tears threatening. You can't undo the years. You can't give me back the nights I stayed awake wondering why I wasn't enough. I know I can't, he whispered. But I can be the reason you don't cry anymore. Her lips trembled. She wanted to believe him so badly that it scared her. Every word, every touch, felt like a dangerous promise, something her heart had already paid for once. He tilted her chin up gently, forcing her to meet his gaze. You're stronger now, he said. I see it in your eyes. You built a life without me. But please, Amelia, don't shut me out of it completely. Her voice cracked as she spoke. You think I can just open the door again? Let you walk in like nothing happened? He smiled faintly, sadness flickering in his eyes. No, I just want you to open the door enough for me to knock. The words disarmed her. Slowly, painfully, her walls began to falter. You always knew what to say, she murmured. He brushed a strand of hair from her face. And I always said it too late. Their eyes held each other's, the world beyond them dissolving into the quiet hum of the night. For a heartbeat, it was like no time had passed at all, like the years of separation, pain, and pride were nothing but a bad dream fading at dawn. Then, from inside the apartment, a soft sound broke the spell, Liam's sleepy voice calling out, Mommy! Amelia turned immediately, instinctively. Ethan watched her disappear inside, his heart aching at how natural she looked in that moment. Her tenderness, her grace, her strength. When she returned, she smiled faintly. He went back to sleep. Ethan exhaled softly. He's perfect. She nodded, her expression softening. He's everything I ever wanted. He hesitated, then said quietly, Does he know? Her eyes met his, unreadable. Not yet. I want to tell him one day, Ethan said, voice thick. When you think it's right. She looked at him, her chest tightening. You're serious about this? I've never been more serious about anything. She studied him, the sincerity in his tone, the quiet ache in his eyes. Slowly she nodded. Then start by showing up. No big gestures, no promises you can't keep. Just be there. He smiled, relief flooding his features. I can do that. They went back inside, the air between them different now. Fragile but no longer hostile. Ethan glanced around the apartment, noticing the little details he'd missed before. Framed photos of Liam, watercolor paintings on the wall, Amelia's favorite candle on the table. Her world had continued without him, yet traces of what they once shared still lingered. You painted again, he said softly, noticing a half-finished canvas near the window. Amelia's lips curved slightly. It helps me think. Can I see? She hesitated, then nodded. He walked closer and looked. The painting showed a silhouette of a woman standing in the rain, holding the hand of a small boy while a shadowy figure watched from afar. He swallowed hard. That's us. Her voice was barely a whisper. It was. He turned to her, emotion tightening his throat. Let me earn my way back into that picture, Amelia. Not as a shadow this time. Her eyes glistened, her hand tightening around the brush she was holding. You make it sound so easy. He shook his head slowly. It's not. But I'll stay until you believe it. They stood in silence, the weight of everything unspoken pressing between them. Then she turned away and began cleaning her brushes. Ethan stepped forward, his hand gently brushing against hers, halting her movement. You used to hum when you painted, he said softly. She blinked, startled. You remember that? I remember everything, he replied. The way you used to sing under your breath. The way you smelled like vanilla and rain. The way you laughed when I burned breakfast but still said it tasted perfect. Her chest tightened painfully. Don't do this, Ethan. Do what? Make me remember what it felt like to love you. He reached out, his hand cupping her cheek. Maybe you never forgot. She turned her face slightly, but his touch lingered. The warmth of his palm spread through her skin, awakening feelings she had spent years trying to bury. Her breath trembled, her heart unsteady. Ethan, she murmured, voice cracking. I can't go through losing you again. His gaze softened. Then I'll make sure you never have to. She looked up at him, her defenses crumbling. The air between them was charged, humming with the pull neither could resist. His hand slid from her cheek to the back of her neck, and before she could stop herself, her fingers found his shirt, gripping it lightly. When their lips met again, it wasn't out of confusion this time. It was surrender. The kiss deepened slowly, filled with everything they hadn't said, everything they still felt. His hand tangled in her hair, hers against his heart, as if trying to memorize the rhythm of each other's existence again. The world fell away. There was no past, no future. Only this moment, raw and trembling, the ache of rediscovery threading between their breaths. When they finally pulled apart, she looked up at him with tear-streaked cheeks and whispered, What if this is just another storm, Ethan? What if it breaks us again? He brushed her tears away with his thumb. Then we'll learn to dance in the rain this time. Her lips parted, and a quiet, shaky laugh escaped her, the first genuine one in years. Always the poet, she murmured. Only for you, he replied, his voice barely above a whisper. Outside, the night grew quiet. Inside, two hearts that had once shattered began to beat again. Not perfectly, not easily, but together, beneath the fragile light of forgiveness that neither had dared to hope for. The silence after his words stretched, filled with something fragile and unspoken. Amelia's heart ached at the way he looked at her, like he was trying to memorize her all over again, to capture every detail he once took for granted. His eyes traced her face, lingering on her lips, then her tear-streaked cheek. She tried to look away, but his gaze pulled her back in like gravity. Ethan, she whispered, voice barely steady, you don't get to fix everything with one kiss. He nodded slowly. I know. But I want to try, one moment at a time. Her breath hitched as his fingers brushed the side of her neck, feather-light, almost hesitant. He wasn't the same man she had once known. There was a gentleness now, something broken and rebuilt inside him. She hated that it made her want him even more. You always say the right things when it's too late, she murmured, her tone soft but trembling. He smiled faintly, his thumb tracing circles on her wrist. Then maybe I'll spend the rest of my life trying to be on time. Her chest tightened. You can't keep saying things like that. Why not? Because, she breathed, taking a small step back. Because I might believe you again. He reached for her hand but stopped short, letting it hover in the air between them. Then believe me, he said quietly. Even if it's just for tonight. The clock on the wall ticked softly, each second echoing louder than the last. The city outside their window flickered with a muted glow of headlights and neon signs, a rhythm of lives moving on, except theirs, frozen in a moment that neither of them knew how to escape. Finally, Amelia turned toward the couch and sank down, her knees weak. Ethan followed, sitting beside her but leaving just enough space so she could breathe. She could feel his warmth beside her, the familiar scent of his cologne stirring memories she had buried deep. Do you remember the night we moved into our first apartment? She asked suddenly, surprising even herself. He smiled wistfully. The one with the leaky faucet and no hot water. She nodded, her lips curving slightly. You tried to fix it yourself and flooded the entire kitchen. He chuckled. You laughed so hard you couldn't breathe. Her laughter faded into a sigh. We were happy then. We didn't need much. Ethan turned to her, his voice low. We had each other. That was everything. Amelia looked down at her hands. And then you changed. You stopped looking at me like I was enough. His expression darkened. No, he said quietly, shaking his head. I stopped looking at myself. I thought if I could become someone powerful, someone successful, then I'd finally be worthy of you. But I lost the one thing that made any of it matter. Her eyes shimmered as she met his gaze. And now I know, he said softly, that success means nothing if I can't share it with you. A tear slipped down her cheek, and he reached out to wipe it away, his touch slow and careful. Don't, she whispered. Don't what? Make me hope again. He leaned closer, his breath brushing her ear. Hope is all I've had for 6 years, Amelia. She froze, her pulse racing at the way he said her name, like a confession, like a prayer. His hand found hers again, their fingers intertwining, and this time she didn't pull away. She closed her eyes, trying to steady herself as he leaned closer still. His voice deep and trembling. I used to dream about this, he murmured. About holding you again. About hearing you breathe next to me. Every morning I woke up and reached for you. And every morning I remembered that you were gone. Her tears fell freely now, silent and unstoppable. Ethan, stop, she said weakly, but he didn't move. I can't, he whispered. Not when you're right here. And before she could find the words to stop him, he kissed her again. This time it wasn't desperate. It was slow, reverent, filled with longing and regret and everything they had both been afraid to feel. Her hands trembled as they rose to his chest, feeling the steady beat of his heart beneath her palms. The world seemed to dissolve around them, the years of distance, the pain, the pride. There was only the warmth of his lips, the taste of salt from her tears, the ache that had waited too long to be released. When they broke apart, breathless and dazed, she pressed her forehead against his. You can't just walk back into my life and make it feel like this again, she said, her voice shaking. He smiled faintly, his thumb brushing against her jaw. I didn't make it feel like this. It never stopped. Her heart twisted painfully. She wanted to argue, to push him away, to remind him of every wound he'd left behind. But the truth was, she felt it too. That spark, that pull. The same fire that had once consumed them both. The soft cry of the baby monitor suddenly broke the moment. Amelia stood quickly, wiping her tears. I'll check on Liam, she said, her tone steadier than she felt. Ethan watched her disappear down the hall, his chest heavy with something between hope and heartbreak. He leaned back on the couch, running a hand through his hair. The sound of her gentle voice soothing their son reached him faintly, and a lump formed in his throat. When she returned, she lingered by the doorway, her arms crossed. He went back to sleep, she said softly. He nodded, offering a small smile. He's got your calm. She chuckled under her breath. And your stubbornness. He grinned, the corner of his mouth lifting. Then he's doomed. Her laughter came easier this time, light and genuine. She sat beside him again, pulling a blanket over her lap. He loves building things, she said, a hint of pride in her tone. Blocks, puzzles, anything with his hands. Ethan's eyes softened. Just like me. She looked at him for a long moment, then sighed. You know, part of me hated you for so long. But part of me also missed you every day. It's exhausting. He turned to her, his voice gentle. You don't have to hate me anymore, Amelia. I don't know how not to, she whispered. Then let me teach you, he said, moving closer. Slowly, patiently. Her lips parted, her breath catching as his hand brushed against hers once more. This time she didn't pull away. She just sat there, the sound of the rain starting to fall outside, the faint heartbeat of something new stirring between them. And as the city lights flickered through the window, Amelia realized she wasn't sure whether she was falling back into the past, or stepping into something she never stopped wanting. The rain outside deepened into a steady rhythm, a quiet percussion against the glass that seemed to echo their unspoken thoughts. The room was dim, the only light coming from a small lamp beside the couch, casting a soft golden glow over Amelia's face. Ethan couldn't stop watching her. Every detail, her lashes trembling when she blinked, the curve of her lips when she bit them to keep from speaking, felt like something he needed to remember to protect. She pulled the blanket tighter around herself, staring at the raindrops sliding down the window. You shouldn't be here this late, she murmured, though her voice held no conviction. He leaned back, resting his elbows on his knees, eyes never leaving her. Maybe not. But I couldn't leave, not yet. Amelia looked at him then, truly looked, and saw the exhaustion hidden behind his composure, the faint shadows beneath his eyes, the weight of years spent pretending he was fine. For a moment, the anger she'd carried for so long wavered, replaced by something fragile. You think staying fixes anything? She asked quietly. No, he said. But leaving again would destroy what's left. Her throat tightened. You don't get to decide that. I'm not deciding, he replied, voice low. I'm asking for a chance to show you I've changed. She scoffed softly, shaking her head. Changed? You used to say that before every business trip. You used to promise you'd come home early. And every time, you chose the boardroom over the dinner table. His jaw clenched. I was a fool. I thought I was doing it for us, building something that would make you proud. I didn't need a CEO, she whispered. I needed my husband. The words hung between them, heavy and raw. Ethan swallowed hard, his voice breaking slightly when he spoke. You still do, Amelia. You just don't want to admit it. Her breath hitched. You don't know what I want anymore. Then tell me, he said softly, moving closer. Tell me what you want. She looked away, blinking back tears. I want peace, she said finally. I want to wake up without feeling like something's missing. He hesitated, then whispered. Maybe that something isn't missing. Maybe it's sitting right in front of you. Her eyes lifted to meet his, and the intensity there made her heart falter. For a long, breathless moment, neither of them moved. The air between them thickened with memory and desire. She could feel it, every heartbeat, every shared breath, pulling her toward him again. You're making this harder than it needs to be, she said softly, though her voice trembled. He smiled faintly. Then let it be hard. The best things always are. She wanted to argue, to push him away, but the way he was looking at her, like she was the only thing keeping him from falling apart, made her chest ache. Slowly, she set the blanket aside and stood, turning toward the window. The reflection of her face, faintly illuminated by the city lights, looked almost unfamiliar. You hurt me more than anyone ever could, she said, her tone fragile but steady. And still, I can't seem to stop caring. Ethan rose, his steps quiet as he came up behind her. He didn't touch her, not yet. I don't deserve that kindness, he said. No, she whispered. You don't. He exhaled shakily, and the silence that followed felt like a confession. Then, almost hesitantly, he reached out, his fingers brushing her shoulder. She didn't pull away. His hand lingered, sliding down her arm until their fingers intertwined. The contact sent a shiver through her. "Amelia," he murmured, his lips close to her ear. "Do you still love me?" Her breath caught. "Don't ask me that." "Why not?" "Because I might tell you the truth." He turned her gently to face him, his hand cupping her jaw, thumb grazing her cheek. Her pulse raced beneath his touch. "Then tell me," he said softly. She closed her eyes. "It doesn't matter anymore." "Yes, it does," he whispered, his forehead resting against hers. "It's the only thing that ever mattered." Her resistance cracked, splintered, then finally broke. Her hands rose to his chest, clutching his shirt, and before she could think, before she could stop herself, her lips found his again. The kiss deepened instantly. Hungry, desperate, full of years of longing that neither of them had been able to bury. His arms wrapped around her waist, pulling her close, their bodies fitting together like they had been made to. The world outside disappeared, the rain, the city, the noise, until there was only the sound of their breaths mingling, the soft sigh that escaped her as his hand slid up her back. He kissed her like a man who had lived in regret for far too long, like every touch might be his last chance to rewrite their story. When they finally broke apart, she rested her head against his chest, breathing hard. "We can't keep doing this," she whispered, though her voice betrayed her. He kissed the top of her head, his hand resting gently on her waist. "I don't want to hurt you again. I just want to start over." She lifted her gaze, meeting his eyes. "Start over. After everything." "After everything," he said. "Because maybe we needed to lose each other to understand what we had." Tears shimmered in her eyes, but she didn't look away. "And what if I'm too scared to trust you?" He smiled softly, brushing his thumb along her bottom lip. "Then let me spend the rest of my life earning it." Her lips parted, a silent tremor of emotion passing through her. The sincerity in his voice struck deep, disarming every defense she had left. The thunder outside rolled softly in the distance, and Ethan glanced toward the window. "The rain's not stopping," he said. Amelia's gaze lingered on him. "You should probably stay until it does." He looked at her, surprise flickering across his face, quickly replaced by something gentler, hope. "Are you sure?" She nodded once. "You can take the guest room." His lips curved into a faint, teasing smile. "Guest room." Her expression softened, but she turned away to hide it. "Don't push your luck, Ethan." He laughed quietly, the sound low and warm. "Yes, ma'am." As she walked toward the hallway, she paused at the doorway and looked back. "Good night," she said, her tone soft but cautious. "Good night, Amelia," he replied, his voice carrying something tender, almost reverent. She lingered for a heartbeat longer before disappearing into her room. Ethan stood there for a while, staring after her, the faintest smile tugging at his lips. For the first time in years, he felt something he hadn't dared to feel, hope that maybe, just maybe this time he wouldn't lose her again. He moved toward the couch and sat down, his thoughts spinning with the sound of rain and the echo of her voice. He looked toward the closed bedroom door and whispered into the quiet, "Tomorrow I'll start making it right." And in the other room, with her hand resting over her racing heart, Amelia found herself silently praying that maybe, just maybe, he would. Morning came with the pale light of dawn spilling gently through the curtains. The rain had stopped sometime in the night, leaving the city washed clean, quiet, and new. Amelia stirred at the faint sounds from the living room, the soft clinking of dishes, the low hum of a voice she hadn't heard in her home for 6 long years. She slipped out of bed, her heartbeat unsteady, the echo of last night's kiss still lingering on her lips. When she stepped into the living room, she froze. Ethan stood by the counter, wearing one of Liam's cartoon aprons, awkwardly flipping pancakes. His hair was slightly tousled, his sleeves rolled up, and his expression, focused, almost boyish, made something ache deep inside her chest. He looked up and caught her watching. A slow, sheepish smile spread across his face. "I didn't burn them this time," he said, holding up a slightly uneven pancake. She crossed her arms, though a faint smile tugged at her lips. "You always say that right before setting off the fire alarm." He chuckled, glancing at the pan. "Not this time. I used an actual recipe. YouTube saved me." Amelia walked closer, the scent of butter and coffee filling the room. "You never made breakfast before." "I never had a reason to," he said softly. "Now I do." Before she could respond, small footsteps padded down the hallway. Liam appeared, his hair messy, his little eyes still sleepy. He blinked at Ethan standing in the kitchen, and his brows furrowed curiously. "Mommy," he said, tugging at her sleeve. "Is that the man from last night?" Amelia's throat tightened. Ethan knelt down slowly, leveling his eyes with the boy's. "Hey, buddy," he said with a gentle smile. "I'm Ethan." Liam tilted his head. "You make pancakes." Ethan grinned. "Terrible ones. Want to help me fix that?" The boy's face lit up instantly. "Okay." Amelia stood there, speechless, watching as her son clambered onto a stool beside Ethan. Their laughter soon filled the kitchen, light, genuine, effortless. She saw how Ethan guided Liam's small hands, how he smiled every time the boy spoke, how natural he looked in that moment. It was as if fate had paused, holding the scene still for her heart to memorize. She turned away, blinking back tears. The years apart had taught her pain, strength, independence. But standing there now, she realized that no amount of distance had erased the bond between them. It had only changed form, waiting for the right moment to bloom again. After breakfast, Liam dashed off to his room, leaving them alone again. The quiet between them felt different now. Not heavy but full of meaning. "He's incredible," Ethan said softly, still watching the boy's door. Amelia smiled faintly. "He has your eyes." Ethan turned to her, his voice barely a whisper. "I saw it the moment I met him." She took a slow breath. "I was angry for a long time. Not just at you, at myself. For believing in you, for loving you too deeply, for never stopping." He moved closer, eyes full of regret. "You had every right to hate me. I hated myself too. But the day I saw you again, Amelia, something inside me came back to life. The world started spinning again." She looked up at him, and for the first time, she saw not the CEO who left her, but the man who once held her through storms, who made her laugh when life felt unbearable. "Ethan," she said quietly, "you can't just walk back and expect everything to be the same." "I don't want it to be the same," he replied. "I want it to be better, stronger, real this time." Her chest tightened. "And what if I can't trust you yet?" He stepped closer until he was just a breath away. "Then let me earn it every single day. Let me prove that you and Liam are the only home I ever wanted." Her lips parted, trembling. The sincerity in his tone was so raw, so open that she couldn't look away. "Words are easy, Ethan." "I know," he whispered. "That's why I'm done talking." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small, worn photograph, the two of them from years ago, laughing, arms wrapped around each other. "I kept this," he said. "Every day, through every meeting, every deal, every empty night. You were my reminder of who I wanted to be." Her tears fell freely now. "You really never forgot. Not for a second." He took her hand and placed the photograph in her palm. "This time I won't make promises I can't keep. I won't ask you to forgive me right now. I'll just ask you to let me stay." The quiet stretched again. Then softly Amelia said, "You already are." He froze, searching her face for meaning. And when she smiled, small, uncertain but real, something inside him broke open. He pulled her into his arms, holding her as if he was afraid she might disappear again. For a long moment neither spoke. The city outside came alive, bathed in golden light. The past didn't vanish, it lived there between them, but so did something new, fragile and beautiful. Liam ran back into the room, holding a small wooden block tower. "Look, I built it tall," he shouted proudly. Ethan knelt beside him, his hand steadying the tower before it toppled. "You did great," he said, smiling. "Just needs one more piece." Amelia knelt too, helping Liam press the final block into place. Together, the three of them looked at the tower, imperfect, uneven, but standing strong. Liam grinned. "We made it." Ethan looked up at Amelia, his voice quiet but full of emotion. "Yeah," he said softly. "We did." The moment lingered, sunlight spilling over their faces, laughter blending with the soft hum of the morning. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't the fairy tale they once dreamed of. But it was real and it was theirs. Later that day, as Ethan prepared to leave for a meeting he couldn't postpone, Amelia walked him to the door. He turned to her, hesitating. "I'll come back tonight," he said. She nodded. "We'll be here." He smiled, brushing his fingers against hers. "Thank you for giving me another chance." As the door closed behind him, Amelia stood there for a moment, her heart both heavy and light. Through the window, she watched him walk down the street, no longer the cold, distant man he'd become, but the one she'd once fallen in love with. When she turned back, Liam was standing in the hallway, holding a crayon drawing of 3 stick figures. A man, a woman, and a child, all holding hands. "Who's this?" she asked gently. Liam grinned. "That's us," he said. "Mommy, Daddy, and me." Her breath caught. Slowly, she knelt and wrapped him in her arms, whispering against his hair. "Yes, baby. That's us." Outside, the clouds parted, letting sunlight spill across the city. And for the first time in years, Amelia felt something she hadn't dared to believe in: peace. The past was behind them. The future waited. And maybe, just maybe, love had found its way home again.